Now let's have a look at the text messaging feature in the Samsung Nexus S phone. Text messaging is located at the menu, under messaging here, or you can put a shortcut on the main screen as I've done here. The first thing that you'll see is a number of conversations and the options for a new message. If you go into any conversation, it'll look like this. You can compose another message down here and send it straight away. So that's a very quick overview. Now let's look at each screen and figure out if there's anything that's good or bad for the usability. This first screen is fairly simple. It has the conversations, it has a header that is understandable, messaging, and it has new message here. So it does say new message, compose new message here, but to me it doesn't look like something you can click. It doesn't look like a button. It doesn't look like anything that you can click on. It simply looks like some text on top of the background here. It's possible to click it and then you'll have your new message. Down here you have a list icon, and this list gives you options for composing a new message, deleting threads, conversations, searching in conversations or in messaging, or settings from messaging. Plenty of those. Now you might have noticed already that when I go back here, I don't go back to the previous screen. I actually go 2 steps backwards. I should go to this one, because that's where I come from, but instead I go directly to the list. And it goes for the other ones as well. If I search for something, if I search messaging, and then go backwards, I'll go back to the list and not the little pop-up here. It's even worse if I go into compose. I compose something here, but I want to cancel it. I go backwards, which means that I remove the on-screen keyboard, but I don't go back to the list, and I don't go back to the pop-up. From here I then go back to this list. So there are some issues in the back functionality because, to be honest, I'd prefer a back functionality that goes one step backwards, because that's easier for me to understand, even though it takes me through some more clicks. So, fairly simple list, but this compose new message is not something that looks clickable, and the options down here, even though they are fairly natural for this screen, for this functionality we have here, the back functionality is a bit cumbersome. If I then go into a conversation, in the conversation here you can see that I have myself 2 times and I have the other part of the conversation with 3 messages. I can compose a new message to the other part simply by going in here. So it's fairly simple to continue the conversation. I use type to compose down here, and thank you for writing the instructions in the field itself. So I compose whatever, and I can press send if I wish to. So the conversations from me have a white background, and the conversations from my conversation partner has a light blue background. I'm not sure if it's visible on this image, but it kind of makes it difficult for me to see which ones are mine, which one are the other ones, compared to other designs such as the HTC phones, Apple phones, the Nokia phone that I reviewed, where you'll have messages from me over here, and you'll have messages from the conversation partner over here somewhere. So it's more easy in other phones to see which messages are yours and which messages aren't. It's not something that kills the usability of the application, but it could have been made slightly more understandable. It might seem like a stupid comment, this, because, well, you can read the name here, and you could read your own name, whether it's me or whether it's the other part, but it's simply easier to quickly look at the screen and see, well, this is one side, this is the other side, so I know that these are mine or these are the other ones. There are a bunch of options down here, and all of them make sense. I like the calling functionality down here, especially. Very often I'm in the middle of a text message conversation that has been going on for hours, and it's simply easier just to call the other part, and therefore it's easy, you can just do it in here. If you use add subject or attach, it will be converted into a multimedia message. I like the insert smiley as well, because sometimes you don't necessarily have to write a new message. You can just say, well, yes, I'd like to send you a smiley, and that's it, instead of having to open the composer. If I go into composing, you will see this keyboard. It's a keyboard for Danish text entry for people that live in Denmark, such as myself. and therefore it has these characters that you shouldn't worry too much about. It's 3 special characters that we have in Danish. And it's a very nice feature that the keyboard layout, the keyboard characters, are changed into the Danish keyboard when I change the text entry language to Danish. Some of the phones, such as the HTC Desire, has the same keyboard, only it'll recognize Danish words instead of only English words when the input method is Danish instead of just English. Here I actually get the keyboard, which is very nice. You can also see down here that it says dansk. That's Danish for Danish. The majority of this functionality is fairly simple to use, fairly easy to understand, but there are some small usability issues with the keyboard itself. As you can see, it has all the letters. So in Denmark there's 28 of those. You can shift here, you can delete here. So down here is an icon that puts in a smiley or puts in another smiley if you long press it. It's very nice. I have been commenting on the necessity of easy access to smileys in some of my other reviews. And you can change to numbers if you wish to, instead of long pressing one of those keys and then waiting for the key to change. So nice and everything, but I do have some small issues here. First off, if I wish to change the input language on this phone, and as I've said a few times now, I live in Denmark, so I wish to enter in the Danish language, then I cannot go into settings here under more or anything and change the language. If you've seen my review of the text messaging feature in the HTC Desire, you notice that I actually commented on the fact that it had a button directly here that could change between English and Danish. And I thought that it was a waste of space because it didn't have the smileys icon. So that's an example of having the functionality too visible in the interface. But I would prefer that design to this design, where I have to go into my settings here, and then I have to go under language and keyboard, and then I would have to select the Android on-screen keyboard settings and which languages I would like to have here. So I would suggest that you somewhere here had the option for changing the language. Not directly on the screen, not buried in the settings, somewhere in between. So here you can see that I get a new message. So what you see up here is the icon that I see if I have a new message. And to me it's simply not enough. I would like a big fat marker here saying you've had a new message, and possibly have parts of the message as well. Of course there's some privacy issues in having a text message directly on the screen, but I would still prefer that to just having this one. Or maybe I could have a big fat button saying you've had a new message from this person. Right now it's up here, and this is what it looks like when I then open it. I have some other issues with this keyboard as well, apart from the fact that it's difficult to change the language. As you can see here, I will have options for inserting characters here straight away. That's fairly cool. But the problem is that this option disappears, and it's not quite clear how you will get it to reappear. Let's say I want to write test and then a question mark. So I get some options here, but I'm not using those, so I'll write test. Now, how will I get the options up here? And what I want to do is I want to write question mark here directly after test with no spaces or anything. But I cannot get this line to appear, so I've got two options here. I can long press down here, which seems a bit cumbersome, and then I get these options. Or I can press 1, 2, 3 question mark over here, which will then give me access to the question mark. And then this one will magically appear. This one is clever, and it's more clever than you would think, because the easy way of doing this is to make a space. So I'm here, I then press space. I'll then have these options. And now you would think, well, this is stupid, because, well, then I'll have a space between my test and my question mark. But if I press the question mark, they will be shifted. So the question mark will be where I want it to be, and there will be a space afterwards. So it's fairly clever that you have this switching around of characters, but it's not very intuitive. Once you've learned this, it's fairly smart. You only need to press space and then your special character. So it's the same 2 key presses that you will use normally. But the problem is that you'll have to change the order of how you input them. You'll have to change into space first and then question mark afterwards in order to have question mark and then space. It's not intuitive. It's fairly clever, but it's not intuitive, and it takes some investigation to figure out that this is how you do it. Again, here you'll have some options with the back functionality. Let's say I wish to attach a file. I'll try to attach something here. I could have taken a picture or anything. This is very easy. But when I go backwards and want to continue writing, I'll be here. I want to go back to this screen because this is the screen I came from. I don't want to go back 2 steps because then I will have to call up the on-screen keyboard again by pressing type to compose. Why don't you just send me 1 step backwards, because that's what I expect. Overall, it's fairly easy to understand this functionality. It does have some usability flaws, and it does have some strange input methods for special characters, but it's fairly easy to understand.